This video was made possible through the support of my patrons. Now, this current review marathon is comprised of Hartnell-era stories that I've not reviewed before, meaning that I'm skipping over the Dalek and Cybermen serials. However, let's just go back to the Dalek invasion of Earth for a few minutes, because there's a lot of context and setup leading into this week's review, The Rescue. So, the Dalek invasion of Earth was broadcast around the show's first anniversary, and culturally, it was the peak of Doctor Who. Dalek mania was now in full swing, Doctor Who was spoken about in the same sentence as James Bond and the Beatles, and while no one knew about the long-term viability of the show, it had a cemented legacy now in British culture, with an audience of 12.5 million people watching the Daleks make their triumphant return to British TV. However, it was around this time that big behind-the-scenes changes were taking place. On screen we had the departure of Carole Ann Ford, the original companion of the show, mainly because the role of Susan wasn't what Carole Ann Ford had expected. She was hoping for a more modern and proactive character, but she got sick and tired of all of the screaming and the pearl clutching, so she decided to step down, much to the upset and confusion of William Hartnell. In terms of a replacement, the team were originally going to go with Ann Davis, who played Jenny in the 6-part serial, but decided that they needed a whole new story to introduce a new character, especially because of the other changes happening internally. David Whittaker, the show's original story editor, was also stepping away from the show. Basically, if Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert were the father and the mother of Doctor Who, Whittaker was the uncle, and his successor would come in the form of Dennis Spooner, the writer of last season's The Reign of Terror, and who was currently working on a follow-up historical set in ancient Rome. To help with this transitionary period, David Whittaker would pen a 2-part story to introduce a new companion and to show Spooner the ropes. It was even part of the same production block as The Romans, sharing a director with Christopher Barry. These two stories would formally comprise the start of Doctor Who's second production year, though they'd be the 3rd and 4th serials of the new season. And as for David Whittaker, don't worry, because we'll soon be hearing from him again, as he was almost immediately commissioned in a freelance capacity to write for the show again this season. But as for The Rescue, we have an introductory story for new companion Vicky, played by Liverpudlian actor Maureen O'Brien. Is it just a historical footnote, or is there something special worth rescuing here? Ha! Let's dive in. Our story takes place on the planet Dido in the 25th century. A human spacecraft has crash-landed on the planet and there's only 2 survivors, Vicky, played by Maureen O'Brien, and Bennett, played by Ray Barrett. They're only a few days away from a rescue ship arriving, but they find themselves terrorised by a native of Dido, Kokillian, played by Sidney Wilson, who claims to be protecting them, but he clearly has sinister intentions. Worse still, Bennett has been left almost paralysed from the crash. The Doctor, Ian and Barbara land on the planet, but are quickly separated by Kokillian, with the Doctor and Ian trying to navigate the underground caves, and Barbara being taken on board the human ship by Vicky, where, along with Bennett, they try to concoct a scheme to free themselves from Kokillian's control. It's a short and snappy 2-part story that starts on a really strong note. We get a great introductory scene between Vicky and Bennett as these two massively contrasting crew members. The TARDIS landing nearby is thought by Vicky to be their rescue ship arriving early, but Bennett knows that that can't be true, and is dismissive of her optimistic nature. The Doctor was asleep while the TARDIS was landing, and he's woken up by Ian and Barbara, and while things are happy and jovial between the three, the Doctor is clearly missing someone.
And again, we can take off again quite easily. No, I do think we ought to step outside and have a look. I will too. Susan,
Doctor, why don't you show me how to open the doors?
Oh, please, my poor heart. Please stop ripping asunder. The three have landed in a cave on Dido, a stone's throw away from the crashed spaceship. However, while Ian and Barbara want to explore, the Doctor has other ideas.
Oh, I have a look round. I should, but don't go too far away. Remember, we haven't had much luck with these caves during our travels.
What are you going to do?
Oh, I think I'm going to have a nap.
Now this is a Doctor who I can respect. Ian and Barbara encounter Kokillian, this hideous insect creature comprised of roughly 130% rubber suit, and he just yeets Barbara off the side of the cliff. Though Vicky manages to save her and sneak her on board their ship, and she explains the situation to her. You see, when the ship crash landed, the crew members had a meeting with the Dido people, which Vicky did not attend due to illness, but all of the humans were killed, including Vicky's father, and Bennett was injured, leaving the two vulnerable to Coquillion, who claims to want to protect them from his people, even claiming to have killed the brand new visitors. Now, there's a big issue with the premise, and it revolves around Coquillion and his impact on the story. However, because it's a big reveal, I want to leave it until later. Instead, let me just talk about how fun the rescue is. Firstly, you can absolutely tell that the team have come back from a 6-week break because William Hartnell has such energy and enthusiasm. I like to think that after the Daleks' invasion of Earth, Hartnell just spent the past month and a half asleep and has now roared back into action, revitalized. He may have lost his granddaughter, but he still has that twinkle in his eye and a zest for adventure. He's a far cry away from the grumpy old man who we saw in the junkyard over a year ago. I do wish the energy was aimed in a more creative direction, however. Oh, when he reunites with Barbara and meets Vicky in part 2, it's brilliant, but for most of part 1, he's just stumbling in a cave with Ian, trying not to fall into a pit, lest this thing eats them. If there's a major weak spot in the story's structure, it's this subplot. There's really no reason for the Doctor and Ian to go on this tangent other than Coquillion, using a Dido weapon, causing a cave-in trapping them, so they have to make their way through a booby-trapped cliff edge for the serial's sole cliffhanger, which is almost comically easy for Ian to escape from.
Now, swing yourself round.
Look,
Give me a hand. Come on, come on, come on. Thanks.
The most useful thing that we learn in these scenes is that the Doctor has been to the planet Dido before, and he knows the Dido people to be an incredibly peaceful race, owing to the fact that there's only a few dozen of them, meaning that violence is a radical, existential threat. The weapon that Coquillion used isn't actually a weapon, it's a construction tool. But what can this mean?
And the plot thickens!
Thankfully, the scenes between Vicky and Barbara make up for the otherwise stagnant Doctor and Ian subplot, as we see that Vicky is a brave and resourceful person, if a bit naive, but she's good at improvising. She rescues Barbara, and when Coquillion comes to visit, she pretends that she went outside to collect alien stones.
You were dragging something? A sack?
oh, just some stones. I collect them. They're very beautiful.
I'm going to talk to Bennett. Remember, you both owe your lives to me.
Maureen O'Brien, in this being her very first television role, exudes charm. Vicky is just a really likeable presence immediately. The character is clearly young and inexperienced. The novelization of the story has her at 14 years old, yet she has a bright soul. But she's also really lonely. Bennett is just the worst type of company, and the only other company she has on Dido is that thing in the cave, which she's trained to come out at certain times of day for food. However, Barbara spots it through the window, assumes the worst, and...
Vicky! No! No, don't!
You public menace.
Seriously, I'm so baffled by this scene. They play it so earnestly, but it's just so silly.
You killed Sandy. Why? What made you? He was almost on top of you. How could you do it? Sandy only wanted some food. Look, he was going to attack you. Sandy only ever ate plants. I trained him to come here for food.
Well, I didn't know that, did I? I mean, how could I?
I shouted. You wouldn't listen.
Look, all I could see was its jaws. And then when it suddenly started screeching, I thought...
killed him. You killed him.
I love it. Every cell in my brain is telling me that it's dumb, but my heart wants what it wants. I just love it. They play it so straight, and Vicky is so upset about what just happened that it almost makes her upcoming friendship with the TARDIS team almost seem forced, like Barbara just killed an innocent creature for seemingly no reason. What if she's got a taste for blood now? Barbara, the oncoming storm. But yeah, it's at this point where the Doctor and Ian arrive and try to come up with a plan to stop Coquillion and help Vicky and Bennett. But let's talk about Bennett, who's this grumpy git in the back room of the spaceship who seems deathly afraid of Coquillion and sees no way of stopping him.
Coquillion told me of your arrival. He's killed your friends.
I don't think so. I'm sure they're all right.
Coquillion doesn't make mistakes.
Well, he did about me. You know, the next time he visits us, we might be able to surprise him. He doesn't know I'm here, does he? So we could set a trap and overpower him.
It's a marvellous idea, isn't it, Bennett?
No.
Well, surely it's worth a try. You wouldn't be any worse off than you are now.
A rescue ship is due to arrive. Why hasn't Vicky told you that? You just sit still, do as he says.
Ray Barrett. Actually, 2 secs. Let's see what else this guy has been in. I don't think I've heard of him. Okay, Wikipedia. Wow, he's done a lot. Who was keeping busy in the 60s and the 70s. The Avengers, Zed Cars, Doctor Who, of course, and Jerry Anderson Productions, Stingray, Thunderbirds. He's the Hood? He's John Tracy? No way. Shut the front door. You're pulling my chain.
Giant alligators?
Anyway, if there's an issue with Bennett's character, it's, once again, to do with Coquillion, because, well, Coquillion's a twat, but it's hard to know exactly what he's doing that's so intimidating other than just being a big threatening presence. Like, why is he doing what he's doing? I mean, Vicky and Bennett do have a weapon that could likely kill him if necessary. Barbara proved that. But no, he just stomps into the spaceship every so often, is grumpy to Vicky, and then goes to talk with Bennett in the back room and leaves through a back door. So what's the threat here? Why is he doing this? Just a few alterations could make Coquillion a much more intimidating presence. Like, I joked about the rubber suit before, but I do think it's a really impressive and visually iconic costume. Maybe he could have been the one to have crippled Bennett. Maybe they could imply a lot more violence when he goes into the back room to talk to Bennett. Or better still, have Coquillion kill Vicky's pet. Anyway, after the Doctor talks to Vicky and promises her that he'll help her out of this abusive dynamic, the Doctor goes to Bennett's room to talk through a plan with him, but the door is locked.
Mr. Bennett?
You can't come in.
I want to talk to you.
So the Doctor just takes a metal strut and breaks his way through the door, like a Chad.
Here's Docky!
But he finds Bennett's room empty. The Doctor rummages through his shelves and finds an elaborate audio setup, which plays pre-recorded messages whenever someone tries to open the door. That's what the Doctor initially heard when he tried to get into the room. There's even an audio link to other parts of the ship.
Tape recordings for what?
You can't come in.
Oh, yes, I like the Doctor. It's funny, but as soon as he walked in, I felt that you could trust him.
This is International Rescue. We're receiving your call. Go ahead, please.
Silly child, silly child.
And to complete the secrecy checklist, there's a trap door, which leads the Doctor to an underground Dido temple, where the Doctor confronts Coquillion, having figured out the mystery.
Come in, won't you? I've been waiting to talk to you. This used to be the People's Hall of Judgment. Fitting in the present circumstances, don't you think? Mr. Bennett, may I remind you that masks and robes such as you are wearing are only used on absolutely ceremonial occasions?
Are you finished?
Yes, I had hoped that you would continue.
It turns out that Coquillion isn't an insect creature. It's Bennett in a ceremonial costume. While the spaceship was en route to its destination, Bennett murdered one of the crew members, but before the crime could be communicated to Earth, the ship crashed. So rather than face the consequences for his actions, Bennett took advantage of the Dido people, arranging a meeting with the crew, and blew it up, killing all of the Dido people and the crew, apart from Vicky, who had no idea what had happened and just who Bennett was. The Coquillion ruse was to trick Vicky into thinking the Dido people were cruel to further add credibility to his innocence. As the Doctor so eloquently puts it,
You destroyed a whole planet to save your own skin. You're insane.
Now I think the rescue was really clunky in getting to this point, but this is one of the best scenes that Doctor Who has delivered up to this point in its history. Now the Coquillion twist itself is an effective one, but like I said earlier, I just wish that maybe he had taken the ruse a bit further. As the story stands, Coquillion really does not do anything other than be a visually distinct presence, but revealing that it was Bennett the whole time just adds so many more layers to the rescue. We never find out who Bennett killed or why he did it, but that's almost immaterial here. All that matters is that Bennett was so self-serving, so desperate to not be found out, that he gaslit the daughter of one of his many victims and wiped out an entire peaceful race of people just so that he wouldn't face justice. It's twisted, it's perverse, and Ray Barrett plays it so well in this scene. The Doctor is clearly horrified, but he's also trying to portray confidence, but even he can't help but back away from Bennett as he walks towards him, when only 2 weeks prior, the Doctor was holding his ground against the Daleks. I think as a singular entity, Bennett is the most evil individual the Doctor has encountered in his travels so far. Couple that with the low lighting of this temple that belonged to a peaceful but now dead race whose religious symbols have now been co-opted by the vanity and the selfish potential of humanity, and you've got an immensely powerful climax to the story, because the rescue is about things not appearing as they seem. No, the ship that landed was not the humans, it was a blue box. Bennett wasn't crippled, he wasn't having conversations with Coquillion, the cave creature was not a threat to Vicky. The rescue is about subversions. Even the credits of Part 1, they weren't accurate, with Sidney Wilson credited as Coquillion, a name made up by combining two of the show's creators' names to keep the secret, Sidney Newman and Donald Wilson. And yet, there's still one more card the story has yet to play. Just as Bennett overpowers the Doctor and almost strangles him,
I killed all of you!
two surviving members of the Dido race appear in the temple, terrifying Bennett so much that he attempts to throw a chair at them.
Oh, that was rather a nice chair.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pointless gesture, that, really.
But the chair does nothing, and Bennett backs away towards a hidden ledge and falls to his death. The Doctor loses consciousness, but is taken back to the TARDIS, and the mysterious men in white smash the spaceship's communicator, ensuring that the rescue intended for Vicky and Bennett never arrives. Thankfully, with Bennett's treachery revealed, and Vicky now knowing who really killed her father and has left her orphaned, the Doctor, for the first time in the show's history, actively recruits a companion.
My dear, why don't you come with us?
In that old box.
We can travel anywhere and everywhere in that old box, as you call it, regardless of space and time.
Then it is a time machine.
And if you like adventure, my dear, I can promise you an abundance of it.
This ending? This is brilliant. Now, like I said, I think the rescue was clunky to get to that Dido temple, like the Doctor and Ian meandering around in the caves, the death of Sandy is melodrama personified, and Coquillion doesn't seem to be that much of a tangible threat, but once the serial arrives at that temple, it's one of the best scenes of the show so far, so spectacularly played by two seasoned veterans of the screen with a great script and production design complementing them. And you can even read some interpretation into just who these two men in white are. Are they really surviving Dido people? Are they ghosts? Reincarnations? Who knows? Their appearance is so fleeting and so random that they almost defy conventional analysis. Besides, we can't think about them for too long, because as soon as the TARDIS materializes to the next destination, it tumbles off a cliff.
Hold on! Hold on! Hold on! Hold on!
There's some great production design and camera trickery in this serial, great moody music, Vicky has a wonderful introduction. Yeah, it's a solid story. It coasts along for a good 40 minutes, and then that twist reveal just shoots it into the stratosphere in terms of quality, and I'm glad that it managed to help Doctor Who maintain its record high viewing figures after the Dalek invasion of Earth, with part 2 of The Rescue drawing in a record 13 million viewers and causing Doctor Who to crack the top 10 for the week, ranking 8th, its highest ranking to date. It showed that, for the short term at least, Doctor Who could weather the storm of major changes, and that Doctor Who wouldn't just be that show that trundles along and then gets a spike whenever the Daleks turn up. The Rescue was a strong start to Doctor Who's second year. It's sloppy in places, but an ending that I adore, with genuinely one of the most evil villains in the show's history, so thematically powerful. But join us next time, as Dennis Spooner takes over formally as Doctor Who's new script editor, and we take the TARDIS back in time to 64 AD and the rebuilding of Rome, as we see the show explore a bold new direction. Outright farce in the Romans. I'll see you next time. Hey folks, thank you so much for checking out my review of The Rescue. I'm sorry, I just had to throw in lots of Thunderbirds references because my mind was genuinely blown when I realised that the actor had played a Tracy brother. Anyway, if you liked this review, or at the very least appreciate a Gerry Anderson reference, be sure to hit that like button, it really helps me out, and also subscribe for more Doctor Who related reviews coming up. Also, I'm sorry if it's a bit darker and I look really tired doing these credits. I'm recording this pretty late because I'm doing this during the festive period, and I wanted this review to be ready to go before I went away for a couple of days. I also want to give a shout out to my patrons who help to make these reviews possible and help to keep the lights on here over the festive period, helping to keep the heating on. You should be able to see their names scrolling down in the credits right now, and I'd like to give a shout out to these particular patrons: Adam Grattan, Angus Bajanason, Ben Langdon, Callum Baird, Chiba City Blues, Dan the Dreamer Shill, Daniel Davis, Darius, Darkstar2189, Darren Carver-Bausiger, Dean Jones, Dr. Hadley, Dragon Bugs, Dylan Whitaker, Evil Dalek 79, Finley Rude, Flipseed, Ginger Animator, Hunter Graham, Jack D. Evans, James Ivory, Jared Saylor, Joseph Adams, Leela, Maria Bergman, Mario Fanboy 15, Matthew Perry, Michael Serrano, Miranda Logan, Nate Harris, Palex. Also, shout out to Palex, who voiced the first Doctor in this review. A very undoctorly line, but I really wanted somebody to do it. Pat Andrews, Randall Sprinkle, Raven Woods, Reese Lloyd, Ross, Ryan Duncan, Samuel Whitaker, Scott Gerard, Taylor Wooderson, The Brit Sniper, The Doctor 14 Blu-ray Reviews, Timbo 1834, Toby Loxton, Will, and William Baker. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm off to bed. Love you all. Thanks for being here. See you next time for the Romans. It's gonna be a fun one.